Sunshine wasn't just a sci-fi thriller, it was existential dread wrapped in solar fire. Turning humanity's last hope into a journey toward the sun. These are 15 weird facts about Sunshine. 1. Actual physicists designed the science. Boyle hired physicist Brian Cox as scientific advisor to ensure that Sunshine's depiction of solar physics, spacecraft operations,
what he said and how he looked was a challenge to the sanity of the people that saw him in a way.
And mission parameters reflected genuine astrophysics rather than Hollywood fantasy. Cox worked with the production to create plausible explanations for how humanity might attempt to reignite a dying sun through nuclear payload delivery.
And a very strong sense of the value of Earth, and also a sense that it's one Earth.
The Icarus II's design incorporated real engineering principles about radiation shielding, heat management, and the mathematical challenges of approaching solar proximity. Cox's involvement meant that even when the film took dramatic liberties, it remained grounded in actual scientific understanding of stellar physics and space travel. The commitment to scientific accuracy elevated Sunshine above typical science fiction by respecting both the subject matter and audience intelligence. 2. The cast underwent psychological isolation. Boyle isolated the actors in confined spaces for extended periods to help them understand the psychological pressures their characters would experience during years-long space missions. The cast lived together in cramped quarters, experiencing genuine cabin fever and interpersonal tensions that translated directly into their performances. This method approach created authentic claustrophobia and stress responses that acting technique alone couldn't replicate convincingly. The enforced togetherness meant that by filming time, the actors had developed real relationship dynamics, both positive and negative, that made their ensemble interactions feel lived in. The isolation experiment demonstrated Boyle's commitment to authentic emotional experiences rather than relying solely on script and direction to create believable performances. 3. The sun was created. Using practical light sources rather than relying on CGI for the sun's overwhelming presence, Boyle used banks of powerful practical lights that genuinely blinded and overwhelmed the actors during filming. The intense illumination created authentic squinting, discomfort, and the sense of facing something incomprehensibly powerful that digital effects couldn't replicate. Cinematographer Alwyn Kuchler designed lighting setups that made the sun feel like an actual character. Beautiful, terrifying, and ultimately unknowable in its cosmic indifference. The practical approach meant actors experienced genuine physical responses to the light that enhanced their performances during sequences involving solar observation or approach. The decision to use real light sources demonstrated how practical effects could create more visceral audience experiences than purely digital alternatives. 4. Cillian Murphy studied real astronaut psychology. Murphy researched actual space mission records and astronaut testimonies to understand how prolonged isolation and cosmic perspectives affected human psychology and philosophical outlook. He studied how astronauts described experiencing the overview effect, the profound shift in consciousness that comes from seeing Earth from space. Murphy incorporated this research into Kappa's character arc, portraying someone whose scientific mission gradually becomes spiritual journey toward ultimate sacrifice. The actor's preparation included conversations with Cox about how scientists might emotionally process the responsibility of saving all human life through one desperate action. Murphy's nuanced performance balanced scientific rationalism with increasing existential awareness that elevated Kappa beyond typical action hero into someone genuinely transformed by cosmic perspective. 5. The third act genre shift was deliberate. The film's controversial transformation from hard science fiction into psychological horror was Boyle's intentional exploration of how proximity to the sun might induce religious mania. The appearance of Pinbacker as disfigured solar fanatic represented the human tendency toward worship and self-destruction, when confronted with incomprehensible cosmic power. Screenwriter Alex Garland structured the shift to reflect how rational missions can devolve into primal responses when humans face genuinely transcendent phenomena. The genre change divided audiences, with some seeing profound meditation on humanity's insignificance, while others felt betrayed by abandonment of scientific rigor. The controversial choice demonstrated Boyle's willingness to risk commercial appeal for thematic exploration of how science and spirituality intersect when confronting ultimate mysteries. 6. The spacesuits were designed for functionality. Costume designer Suturat Ann Larlarb created spacesuits that emphasized practical engineering over Hollywood aesthetics, with every element serving plausible functional purposes. The gold-plated heat shielding reflected genuine materials used in high-temperature aerospace applications rather than simple visual design choices. The bulky, restrictive suits created authentic movement limitations that made actors genuinely struggle with physical tasks, enhancing realism of space operations. Each suit was individually tailored to reflect crew members' different roles and the wear patterns that would develop during years-long missions. The commitment to functional design meant that spacesuits felt like actual survival equipment rather than costumes, grounding the fantastic premise in tangible reality. 7. The payload bomb was based on real physics. The massive nuclear device at the film's center was designed using actual theories about how humanity might attempt to restart stellar fusion processes. Physicists consulted on the film calculated the theoretical yield and delivery mechanism that would be necessary to affect solar core dynamics. The bomb's Manhattan Project-scale design reflected genuine scientific approaches to creating unprecedented explosive force through nuclear physics. The payload's physical presence throughout the film served as constant reminder of the mission's apocalyptic stakes and the destructive power required for creation. The scientifically grounded doomsday device made the premise feel more plausible than typical Hollywood superweapons with impossible capabilities and no basis in physics. 8. Chris Evans fought against his character's arc. Evans, playing engineer Mace, initially resisted his character's aggressive confrontational behavior, preferring more traditionally heroic portrayal of crew dynamics. Boyle convinced him that realistic space missions would involve personality conflicts, and that Mace's pragmatic ruthlessness served essential dramatic functions. The actor's reluctance actually enhanced his performance by creating visible tension between Mace's professional competence and his interpersonal abrasiveness. Evans later acknowledged that playing against his natural likability created more interesting character than simple heroic engineer would have provided. The casting of Evans, known for heroic roles, in an antagonistic position, demonstrated how subverting audience expectations could create more complex ensemble dynamics and moral ambiguity. 9. The Icarus I discovery changed everything. The derelict ship discovery allowed Boyle to explore how previous failure haunted the current mission and how desperation could corrupt even the most rational minds. The sequence where the crew explores the abandoned vessel created atmosphere of creeping dread that foreshadowed the film's darker psychological turn. The Icarus I represented the terrifying possibility that even with perfect planning, the mission might fail for reasons beyond technical or scientific control. The discovery forced characters to confront questions about whether their predecessors had failed through incompetence, madness, or simple bad luck. The abandoned ship served as ghost story element that transformed Sunshine's hard science fiction into meditation on human hubris. 10. The oxygen garden destruction was emotionally devastating. The scene where the ship's oxygen-producing garden is destroyed represented loss of life, hope, and the crew's last connection to Earth's natural systems. The garden had been established as beautiful sanctuary, providing psychological relief from the mission's oppressive environment and mounting stress. Its destruction forced immediate life or death calculations about who would survive on limited oxygen, creating moral crisis about sacrifice and survival. The sequence demonstrated how single catastrophic failure could cascade into existential crisis when operating at the margins of survival. Boyle filmed the burning garden as tragic loss of beauty and life rather than simple plot complication, emphasizing the emotional stakes. 11. The score combined. Electronic and orchestral elements. Composer John Murphy and electronic duo Underworld created a hybrid score that reflected the film's themes about science, confronting transcendence and mystery. The music combined cold electronic textures representing technological isolation with swelling orchestral movements suggesting cosmic awe and spiritual transformation. The famous Adagio in D minor became one of cinema's most recognizable themes, used extensively in trailers for other films and media. Murphy's score avoided traditional science fiction music cliches, instead creating soundscapes that felt simultaneously scientific and spiritual in their emotional impact. The music's ability to convey both rational determination and existential wonder perfectly matched the film's exploration of how humans process incomprehensible cosmic forces. 12. The film questions. Humanity's right to survive. Sunshine's underlying philosophy examined whether humanity deserved salvation or if extinction might be a natural consequence of our cosmic insignificance and failures. The characters debate whether saving humanity is objectively good or simply biological imperative with no genuine moral weight in an indifferent universe. Pinbacker's solar worship represented extreme position that humanity should accept death as divine judgment rather than fighting against natural cosmic processes. The film never definitively answers these questions, leaving audiences to determine whether the crew's sacrifice was heroic or simply desperate attempt to postpone inevitable extinction. The philosophical ambiguity elevated Sunshine beyond simple survival thriller into meditation on human purpose and cosmic meaning. 13. The visual effects emphasized scale and insignificance effects. Supervisor Tom Wood designed sequences that emphasized humanity's microscopic scale against the incomprehensible vastness of solar forces and cosmic distances. The approach avoided spectacle for its own sake, instead using visual scale to create existential dread about human vulnerability in a hostile universe. Shots of the tiny spacecraft approaching the massive sun reinforced themes about hubris and the terrifying indifference of natural forces to human survival. The effects work prioritized emotional impact over technical showboating, using cosmic imagery to evoke philosophical responses rather than simple visual awe. The restrained approach to spectacle made the few moments of visual grandeur more powerful by contrast with the film's generally claustrophobic aesthetic. 14. The ending leaves survival ambiguous. Whether Kappa successfully delivers the payload remains deliberately unclear, with the film's final images suggesting either triumph or beautiful hallucination during death. The ambiguous conclusion respected audience intelligence by refusing to confirm whether humanity was actually saved or if the mission's heroic sacrifice was ultimately futile. Boyle wanted viewers to sit with uncertainty rather than receiving reassuring closure that would undermine the film's exploration of faith and doubt. The open ending generated extensive debate among audiences about interpretation and meaning, extending the viewing experience beyond the theater into philosophical discussion. The refusal to provide clear resolution demonstrated confidence that the journey's themes mattered more than definitive outcomes. 15. It bombed, but became a cult classic. Despite critical acclaim and artistic ambition, Sunshine failed commercially due to poor marketing and audience confusion about the film's tonal shifts and philosophical themes. The studio struggled to position a cerebral science fiction film that defied easy genre classification and required patience from viewers expecting conventional action thriller. The box office failure meant Boyle's vision reached limited audiences during theatrical run, despite being his most visually ambitious and thematically complex science fiction work. Over time, home video and streaming allowed the film to find its audience among viewers who appreciated its willingness to prioritize ideas over spectacle. Sunshine remains one of science fiction's most divisive films, a meditation on sacrifice, faith, and humanity's cosmic insignificance that refuse to provide easy answers or conventional thrills. 18 years later, it stands as testament to ambitious filmmaking that prioritizes ideas and atmosphere over safe commercial formulas. Drop a comment below. What legendary film should we dive into next? Because in a universe full of light, some stories refuse to look away from the sun.